2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to the Town of Long Meadow Select Board meeting. Today's date is 7/17/17, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We are in the middle of July, working to keep things going smoothly in the town, and I guess we will start with announcements. Does anybody? Yes?
I just have one announcement for now until I think of the other ones that I wanted to say. But on August 7th, this is save the date, it is Purple Heart Day in Long Meadow. There'll be an event on the green on August 7th at 10 a.m. to honor the Purple Heart recipients who are town residents. If anybody has any questions, they can call our new Director of Veteran Services, Lena Vilturo. She can be found at the Adult Center, 565-4150. And we just have its invitations went out to the recipients, but I have one here for the board as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other announcements?
Yeah, I believe there's seven vets.
Recognized?
1, 2,
Could be close to
3,
that.
4, 5, 6 vets by my count.
6.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 Vietnam, 2 World War II.
I'll read their names.
Yeah, why don't we do that? That would be nice.
David Weiner, U.S. Army, World War II. Samuel Hatch, U.S. Army, World War II. John Fitzgerald, U.S. Army, Vietnam. Stephen Frederick Douglass, U.S. Army, Vietnam. Wayne Fisher, U.S. Marine Corps, Vietnam. Edward Cullejay, U.S. Navy, Vietnam.
Yeah, because I went out this weekend and tried to locate all the guys. I didn't get everybody. I got John, and I positively had ID'd where 2 more are definitely still living in town.
Mhm.
And 1 had left his home, so some of it's going to be kind of hard to figure out where the guys are.
I know
at.
Lena is working on that.
Yeah, especially the World War II guys.
Yeah.
So,
Any other announcements? I know that last Thursday we had a luncheon for all the volunteers, and it was held at Twin Hills, and that was a nice event. And one of the things that happened there is they gave out pins to everybody, and I believe, Richard, you had something to do with that, didn't you?
a little bit.
A little bit. I think it was your initiative, and
Yeah, well, Stephen and I worked together, and all the division chiefs.
Yeah, I will say it's Richard was the impetus behind it and pushed to get it done.
yeah.
He's being extremely euphemistic by saying we worked together on it. I just referred the matter to our HR director, and she did the bulk of the legwork to get the years of service and things like that down. Especially, we have a whole set of employee recognition pins that we're trying to schedule an employee recognition event like there was for the Adult Center volunteers.
Mhm.
Library had a similar event for their volunteers. We're trying to do something for the employees and hand out pins at an event like that, but it's challenging to land something like that on the schedule. But no, credit goes to Richard and Erica Jelinas, our HR director, for the whole thing. I was probably less than helpful, to be honest with you. They're all well deserved. It just was, I just needed to be pushed on it, and I thank Richard for doing that. They
Yes.
are, when you see the response of people who get them, it really is, it's a nice thing.
What do we got? Still have a 40-year employee too, don't we, Stephen?
I think we do.
35 or 40. So there's some that have been here a long while.
I don't know if
Mr.
there's a pin for employees that feel like it's been 40 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there are. And there was a request that came in to investigate pins for some of our long-serving committees too. So that'll be the next cycle, and that shouldn't take much to put together. We've got the work all done.
Well, thank you for Richard for
Yeah.
doing that. I know they didn't mention it last Thursday, but as I thought about it, I said, maybe
Well,
I should have mentioned it, but no one really
They don't need
told
mentioning.
me, but, well,
It's done.
yeah. Okay, if there's no other announcement, did you think of any others?
not right off the top of my head.
Not right now. Okay, so then we would go to resident comments if there's any. No? Okay. No residents' comments. We can get right to work here with the town manager's report.
You have the department reports in the packet. Just a couple of items of note on my own report. The DPW project, we kicked off after the election. We have since re-kicked off the project with our designer, Weston Sampson, as well as our owner's project manager, Colliers International. I think as many of you know, an owner's project manager is a requirement of the state law for public construction projects over a certain amount. And their role, they are construction experts, and their role is to monitor the design process, the budget. If there's value engineering needs to be done, they help with that. And then throughout the construction process, they track invoices and things like that, so it'll provide a great service to the town. They're our watchdog in the process. So we think the design is going to commence in earnest. We know they're going to, now that we have possession of the building, we'll be able to allow them in to do the specs of the demolition. We told designers that we really want demolition to happen as soon as possible in the existing building because we believe it to be a liability concern. We are paying extra insurance to carry it, and so we want to make sure we want to address that. We are going to retain the services of a relocation consultant to assess the value, if any, of the business there and provide any relocation benefits that the former property owner may be entitled to or any business occupant may be entitled to. So that we're kind of holding still until that process takes place in terms of doing things to the building. But those are the kind of top two priorities for now. The other thing is we will be, I've directed the designers to, as soon as possible, prepare a report of the energy efficiency, net zero energy building design concepts that they have, and we'll be submitting that information to the Green Communities Program for additional grant money to pay for those upgrades.
Stephen, how was the OPM chosen? Was there an
We
RFP?
went through a designer selection process some months ago. You had to hire the OPM under the law before you started design. So when we received the second appropriation from town meeting, when we went from just kind of programming study into the next phase of design, we had to retain them at that point.
Was that the building committee? Who's the we selected them? Shouldn't it have been the building committee that did it?
No, it would have been the designer selection board, which is purchasing director, myself, director of public works.
It operates different than schools, Mark.
Yeah.
There's no mandated process by law on that. It would fall back in.
Oh, you're saying like a school building? No. Yeah, Richard's right. It's a different
But
set of
I
rules.
thought that's why we had a building committee.
Yeah, but we didn't have one at the time that we had to hire the OPM.
Well, we did. We had a select board. We've always had a select board, not a select board appointed DPW committee. We didn't have what I'll call the universal building committee, but we had the DPW building committee.
I think at the time it was a task force, but
Mhm.
either way, it's a designer selection process, and we have a designer selection board that through our purchasing department does these evaluations. It's the same group that did the evaluation of Weston and Sampson. Now the permanent building committee is going to participate in designer selection board processes going forward, but we didn't have that set up at the time we hired them.
What's the value of that, of an OPM? Is it 1% of the project or 2% of the project? It's pretty hefty.
I'm waiting on the next.
Contract.
I want to say it was 150, but we didn't use it for the first phase, but we didn't use anywhere near that amount. But it is a percentage of the project. I'm waiting on the second round of scope and fee from them.
It's a pretty hefty charge.
It's a pretty hefty charge.
Yeah.
It's built into the soft cost
Right.
budget.
But so how do we, I'm just curious, Bill, how do we bid it if it's not based on price? Or how do we select it if it's not?
They carry an estimated number.
Right, but were there criteria set to establish who would be the OPM, or was it just?
I mean, this is 2 years ago, yeah. I mean, there are criteria that we have. They have to meet certain qualifications under Chapter 149 rules, and
It just seemed to me to be, as an open policy, we ought to, how many firms were eligible, and what was the selection criteria?
I'd have to go back to look. It was a long
I mean,
time
I think
ago.
it's important that we know that. This is potentially $1 million
Right.
contract.
I know, we went through the process that's specified by statute and did the evaluation, and just like we do with a lot of procurement decisions.
Right.
And I just don't happen to recall it, because it was a while ago.
Mhm.
And I think if you go back to, I got everything there, if you go back to town manager reports from that era, I'm sure I have it laid out.
Yeah, well, Mark, that's a good point, because now that we have a permanent building committee, it'd be nice if they had a policy to where, we know at least they're looking at several different vendors or OPMs, and then, coming up with some criteria.
Again, I want
Is that
to,
standard?
we have to do that under the state law.
Yeah, it's regardless.
It's got,
yeah.
regardless of whether we
So-
have a permanent building committee or not, there are
Yeah.
certain processes we must follow.
Yeah.
We have followed those.
Yeah,
Because we wanted the permanent building committee to be more engaged in selecting designers,
mhm,
I'm actually the one who wrote in to the job description for the permanent building committee, participate in designer selection board processes, because I do think it's important to have them a part of it. But again, we had to hire the OPM on the DPW before we started design,
right,
and that was 2 years ago. So we
Yeah.
had to, we had to do it under state law.
yeah, and follow procedures.
Yeah.
Okay,
They-
On the next project, it'll go exactly like I think the way you think it should go, Mark, which is have the permanent building committee be a part of it. That just wasn't the reality of the situation when we did it. But I'm sure I reported on it when we did it.
Well, that committee was not tasked as a building committee, that was a site selection committee.
It was, the task force was really site selection.
Right, and their task could have ended with the site selection,
Yeah.
period.
I mean, it's, in the team that we have, it's an internal team, we hire engineers and designers all the time. I mean, we have a set process for doing that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that is, on the just want to let you know that the project is moving forward. We're taking the steps we can take. A note in here about the legal expenses. We are way over budget on legal expenses, really because of a lot of, I would argue, one-time situations. Converse Street, the Converse Street, right-of-way acquisitions.
Right, yeah.
We've got the issue that we're going to talk about later tonight with Pride Station. There was some legal work associated with the accident. You have the list there, but we did ask the Finance Committee for a reserve fund request to cover the total overage. They gave us less than that. They wanted some of the legal expenses associated with the siting of the DPW project and the Adult Center Building Committee project to be carried by those projects.
mhm,
For what they call transparency. I was not in the meeting. This has been reported to me by the finance director.
right.
I think that's fine. I mean, I think we have to pay the bills now. We just got these expenses were incurred
Yeah.
before we had the bond. I think we'll, according to Paul Pasterzik, we'll make it all work. But I do think that we should, report back the costs, when we do the accounting for the project. But we still have to pay the bills now before we have the bond in place.
Mhm.
But I just want to give the board a heads up that we did go well over our budget on legal expenses, and we did ask the finance committee for some money.
Okay. Wait,
Just,
Mark,
Stephen,
you
just a
had,
quick comment on that. I think
on this.
it may very well have been before you were here, but we also had some issues with legal fees, and at the time, the select board was, and part of that at the time was identified as, we had 1,000 different people asking lawyers for opinions. I don't know if you were here at the time or not, but,
I
and
remember that, yeah.
we put out some directives of how to control our legal fees, and I'm just wondering, given the magnitude of this and some of the categories, which, my personal opinion is, I might not have gone to an attorney for some of the opinions, is should there be some additional guidance on this stuff? I mean, the legal fees associated with the Bliss Park siting of the DPW, I thought was one thing I saw in the
Senior Center.
The
Senior Center, I'm sorry, Bliss Park.
Either, it doesn't matter. Either way.
Right,
Siting,
right. The
site selection for both projects.
Stuff, I'm not sure how well spent that money was in retrospect, but, I just wonder how we can try to keep this under control, only because these are truly additional out-of-pocket costs that the town's got to endure, and I think we've got to take a closer look at how we utilize our attorneys. And I know it's, when you got a lot of citizens coming at you, it's, well, we're gonna go get a legal opinion, but legal opinions cost, and I think we gotta think about it a little bit more.
I mean, I think, I agree with you, Mark, but if these were recurring expenditures, where I think we're gonna hit this same number next year, I would share your concern about, really reevaluating the thing globally. But these really were, I mean, we're not gonna be in a DPW siting selection process, we're not gonna be appraising the facility, that's $40,000 by itself. I don't think we'll be in the process of citing an adult center. That seems to have been kind of nailed down. And, God willing, there isn't expenses associated with, an accident in our, a town accident. Yeah, I mean, the things like the Board of Health cases, those were somewhat, the amount of time that was consumed in land court and other places for those Board of Health things was, hopefully we don't have cases like that, but those are the ones that'll probably be more of the recurring type, but then you just don't know. It's, some years you may have no new cases of unsanitary conditions and uncooperative residents and things like that. And the Pride Station thing is just, that is what it is. That's somebody making a decision for themselves that affects us, so.
I'd comment too, that like when you had a situation with Bliss Park, where it was going before the town for a vote, I mean, we really owe it to the constituents to have a legal opinion about what that land is. I think we're kind of trapped in some of those situations. We just, we have to spend the money because it's, that we don't want the town to say to us, well, the select board isn't really prepared. The town manager's not really prepared.
I mean, if you want to call that a long-range plan, prep
Yeah,
cost, it's one way to look at it. I mean, 10 different people with the status of certain lands where you get 10 different answers,
yeah.
including our own, folks who've been with the town for a long time still weren't 100% clear, and the number got high because it turns out it took a lot of digging to figure out what it was, so it was now then understandable why the ownership status and all that other stuff was somewhat unclear. Now we know it about ourselves, and we're in a better position to look at the long-range plan going forward because we have this information.
Right.
The next thing I have is, Mark, this is something I know it's been a thing on a burr in your saddle for many years. We finally have got the schools in the town buying electricity at the same time. We just started, I remember 2 years ago I reported we timed the last round of electricity buying so we would get to this point, and here we are. And so now we are buying, we're buying jointly from one source. We bid out all the electricity consumption as a bulk buy. Somewhat strangely, town side goes up, school side goes down, but and we carry our own utility line items, and I'm sure that's going to be the next discussion at town meeting on utility line items.
But the town side went up only because of the timing. If we had bid it on our own, ours was gonna go up.
Yeah.
Right.
And theirs went down because, very honestly, they were overpaying, in my opinion.
Right.
And trying to buy it through the PV, Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative, which is why we wanted to bring it down. I think it's worth noting that overall, the savings is gonna be over $13,000 a year.
Yeah, so it's about $13,000 net savings. So
Right.
that they're saving about 17, and we're costing a little bit extra, about 3,000 extra. But either way, it's all general fund money. That's not like Chapter 70 or something we can't touch. That's all general fund money. So it does.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
It does prove the point. I didn't have it in here, but we do have a meeting this week with the Dwight Road developers on the DIF project. Mike Schneider did review the draft of the developer agreement that was given to us by I asked the developer to come up with the first draft to get the process moving. I did get Mike's comments. I'll be honest, I have not reviewed them. He's out of town this week. But we are moving forward on that project as well, to try and bring something before the board for discussion as soon as possible. And God, I thought there was one more thing, but it's.
Well,
it's
I also, the accreditation process for the
Oh, yeah.
the police, I think
Yep.
that's kind of important. It's funny, when Sheriff Mike Ash retired, he said that when they first started accreditations, when he was the sheriff, he said it you took this guy out for a 7 and 7 and a club sandwich, you know? And it's pretty detailed at this point. And so I would think that the Hampden County Correctional Center would also be a good resource for us if you wanted to mention that to the police chief, you know, in terms of all the policies and procedures, because, you know, they kept increasing their level of accreditation to the highest level, so.
Yeah, I think, I know the chief has talked to the sheriff, talked to the former sheriff and the new sheriff about that, and I think they guided our interest in doing the process.
Oh, good.
I appreciate him reminding me. So there's a memo in there there's actually 2 memos from the police chief. One is about accreditation. It's going very, very well. We talked this morning at staff meeting about how just the process of getting yourself organized as a department and analyzing your policies and starting to change that has been beneficial in real-time operating.
Right.
And we talked a little bit how every department has some form of accreditation or certification with their national or regional associations. And I encouraged all department heads to look into engaging in that process. It is a lot of work. I think I want to relay that it's a lot of extra work for the departments, and there is some extra cost to doing it, but I think what the chief is reporting here, and I agree with it, is that it's been worth doing, and it's helped department operations, a great department, be even better. So I want to commend him for that. The other thing is one of the, you know, so it's a good segue, because the community compact that we have with the Commonwealth, we received a grant for participating in the accreditation process. There was a cost to it. The grant has offset that cost. But we also signed up for a best practice related to vehicle safety, especially for senior drivers. And as you can see in the memo, I asked our traffic sergeant and our new council on aging director to get together and kind of review our programs, because I suspected we were already doing a lot of this between Complete Streets and Age Friendly and all these other things we've done. A lot of them did tie back to this best practice. And then the last piece to really complete that is a free presentation on issues facing mature drivers, and that's going to take place on Thursday, September 21st at 12:30 at the Adult Center. And so all either if you're a mature driver or you have a mature driver in your family that you're concerned about, please get in touch with Jim Layden at the COA. I don't think you have to sign up, but you should let him know that you're going to be there, so we have good attendance. And so I just wanted to highlight for the board that this is something that we just kind of did on the side.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great program. Mark?
Yeah. Stephen, I want to highlight two other things, really. One may be a question too, but because it was such a big deal at the time, that Paul Pasturzik wrote in his notes that they are going to be coming before the board in the fall to refinance the first note from Long Meadow High School. And he's projecting a savings over the life of the note, which is another, I don't know, I think it's 15 years or 18 years yet, of excess of $1 million. And so, I'd like to certainly commend Paul for keeping an eye on that. I remember when we borrowed that money the first time, we said we need to borrow it now because interest rates can only go up, and in fact they've gone down, but I think keeping an eye on it, and I know this is the first opportunity we've had to refinance it without a significant penalty, and I think it's a great move on. I don't know whether it's Paul or Cheryl who's doing it, but I think it's pretty good. The other thing though I don't understand here, and I was going to ask if you get some clarification. The treasurer collector's note, it says receive $55,000 in taxes and $19,000 in interest and pay off of property with previous status and deferred taxes. Do you know what that means, Stephen? Can you find I'm trying to understand if that $74,000 is, pardon the expression, found money, if it's beyond what we thought we were going to get, or if it was already part of what we had budgeted for. I don't understand what deferred taxes are. So.
Deferred taxes.
It's under the town clerk, treasurer collector comment.
Yeah, I see that.
I don't know what it is. If you could just look into it, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Debbie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Westcom?
No, oh yeah, it's Do you have that sheet?
Yes.
Okay. So, there's just a brief note here from the police chief about some training work that they're doing, being supported by the Gaming Commission. That'll set up a baseline for tracking data associated with the casino operation, crime data associated with the casino operation. This is something we talked a lot about, and I think I had concerns about, well, how are you gonna know? You know, the community mitigation is tied to change compared to a set baseline, and the state is, and the gaming commissioner are being aggressive about establishing the baseline and training the local departments and giving them the tools they need to help monitor this, not only locally, but at the state level. So they're in the process of doing that. And then we have I know we voted
Stephen,
for.
I just question, did they get some preliminary data before you negotiated with MGM?
No. I mean, they looked at, there's a center at UNLV that does national studies on gaming data. I mean, it depends on the subject, but there really wasn't a lot of great things that could project specific impacts here.
Okay. And did we, but we did look at traffic patterns at that time, though? Because, I mean, would they include things like that? Like the
I
way
think,
that-
I think it's gonna be mostly crime statistics, not traffic statistics. We have we did the study, actually MGM paid for it, but with a third-party traffic engineer, went out and did the traffic counts to establish our baseline for traffic.
Right.
And so they'll be monitoring it in the future. So traffic is being analyzed on a separate
Okay.
platform,
Yeah.
whereas this is just specific to crime.
All right, because I mean, I hope that there's no additional car accidents in town because of the casino, but if there were, we probably won't have that tracked. So-
I think we're really looking, I mean, crash data will be somewhat illustrative, but you'd have to say, where'd you come from? And you'd have to know that they came right from there that's one of the things we did learn, Marie, as you recall, going through the process, that it was gonna be difficult to assess unless you could track them back via security cameras or something like that. I think it's more volume, traffic
Mhm.
volumes. I think it stands to reason that greater volumes of traffic will increase the likelihood of crashes. That was
Right.
a $5 million argument for us.
Mhm.
But it's going to be, there's not great data because I think it's hard to really pin it down in a specific way. But you have to at least count. Is there, you may not be able to sign a causal relationship in a really clearly defined way, but at
Mhm.
least know where things are going.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
So then the last thing is there's a signature sheet that Debbie's going to circulate for the district agreement for Westcom, for the regional dispatch. I know you guys approved it, but they want original signatures. The other towns have signed variations of the signature sheet, and I have them at the office. I'm going to consolidate them and send them to the Executive Office of Public Safety, so when she circulates that, just autograph it for me.
Okay, so that's coming around for folks. All right.
And I learned today, somewhat third hand, that we should be getting word on our grant probably by the end of the summer.
Regards to the regional rec.
Yes, please, Marie. On
I
the
just have a
grant?
question about the
Oh.
town manager report. The original due date that they said they were going to try to get that report back to us on the rail crossing was mid to end of June. Have you heard any other updates on that? Because I know they're still working on that.
That was in the packet
Oh, it was? I missed that.
last week.
Oh, I missed that. But when is it? When are you expecting it? What was the update on that?
The report was in the packet last week.
Oh, it was in the packet.
Yeah,
I
I mean-
totally missed it.
Well, it wasn't much.
Yeah,
We
I was
didn't
gonna
miss
say,
anything.
It was 3 pages, and you blinked, you missed it.
There's nothing,
Oh,
Marie. It was,
really?
it was a form that they had a lot of boxes checked.
I mean,
That was it?
Yeah, that was
The guts of the report, if you will, the beef, was a one-page table that included the recommendations of the analysis. And that included what basically they'd already told me, which I'd already told you,
Right.
which is the full treatment of the thing.
Now, does this mean we're going to make it in time for that September money that you were saying, that if we could get it through the state?
There's no deadline on that.
Yeah, I didn't
don't
see any
think.
time on that.
Yeah, there's no timeline
Yeah.
on that.
It's not a September thing?
I know Amtrak has a report. I know Mass DOT has been in communication with Amtrak.
Mhm.
I am pushing them to push Amtrak, and we're just waiting. I mean, the ball is in their court right now.
But I thought there was something that they were going to be, there was a list of what was going to be done. It was going to need to be in by September. Is it September, October? But there's no deadline.
There's not really a deadline on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
So any other questions on the town manager report? Okay, so that was good. I guess we can go back into old business, and we need to approve the minutes of July 10th.
I move we approve the minutes of July 10th, 2017 meeting.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Abstain.
And one abstention. Okay. The Charter Review Committee. So we went through a voting process. Each one of us gave votes to Debbie, and she calculated them, and we came up with a list of people who were on the committee. And, but there are some questions if we needed to have a formal, or have a second vote, you know, to say that we approve these folks. And I kind of thought we did that, but, you know, if people are looking for a motion, do we want to just do that?
Yeah,
Approve the-
yeah,
Okay.
I'll present a motion that we approve what this three-person selection committee, what the recommendations were on appointments. The appointments are Dr. Angelides, Peter Landon, David Martell, Arlene Miller, Gerald Nolet, Larry Starr, and as non-voting alternate members was Elizabeth Bone and Michael Clark.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I'd like
Any-
to propose an amendment to that.
Okay.
I'd like to propose that we insert in the minutes today, and I didn't put it in last week's minutes because we weren't technically voting on it, but
Yeah.
actually the voting grid, I think our votes ought to be public. I think they are public. And rather than just the appointment, as Richard said, I think the
Yeah.
votes are important. So I'd like to say, with the addition of the individual votes included.
Okay. Any second for the amendment?
Yes, I'll say.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Okay, I mean, it was pretty clear, those were our votes, and I don't think there should be much
No,
problem with that.
I just think it should be in the record. That's all.
So, put on the record. So we want to vote on the amendment?
If you call for a vote, we will.
Calling, okay, all those in favor? Adding the list, okay.
And I
Opposed?
abstain.
One abstention, okay. And so then the other amendment was to accept the names of those 6 folks and 2 alternates. Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay,
I abstain.
and abstain.
Yeah, and actually,
Actually,
Bill
you
can't
couldn't vote. You'd
vote
have to
because he wasn't
abstain.
here.
I do?
'Cause
Yeah, you weren't here.
Well, no, but why? He can vote.
Not on the appointment of the list, he wasn't part of it.
Oh.
He can vote on the appointment of the list you
Although
just
they-
gave.
Although they were probably the same that I gave you, right?
Yeah, oh,
No,
okay.
they were.
Oh,
He's
good.
here, he
Except
can
for
vote.
one,
theoretically.
Because I
I mean,
had.
Yeah, I guess-
theoretically, we
I
could vote
guess you
again.
heard the interviews.
Committee.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Theoretically, we could vote again.
So
I have no
we,
problem with Bill
We don't
voting.
have remote participation.
Okay, so,
I'd like to bring up another point before we move on.
please.
Yeah,
Maureen.
I guess I'm a little concerned, and that is that one of the youngest members of the board is my husband. And I would like to put a motion on the floor to expand the committee to have the alternates be voting members, so we have a wider variety of people on the board.
Okay, so that's a
So
motion?
I'd like to move to make the alternates, to extend the size of the committee from 6 to 8, to make the alternates voting members.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
You'll second it, and we can now have a discussion?
I think that it would be, if we extended it to 8 people, it's a really important committee, we'd have more voices on the committee, you'd expand the number, you'd double the number of women on the committee, and also you would have younger people on the committee, and I think it would be a value. I know they can speak and be there, but also if you have a voting member, we don't have, a voting member not there, we don't have right now the rule, it would have to be a charter change, I think, that voting, alternates can become voters if a regular member's not there. So I think it'd be worth it to expand the committee to 8.
Okay,
And that's why I'm talking about expanding it and just taking the alternates and making them voting members.
any other comments about that? We'd have, so 8 people on the committee, so we'd have a 4 and 4 split on some issues, and then we could have a,
Well, we would still have the
But
idea of
it's
the
a recommend-
supermajority.
But it's also they're only a recommendation committee. They're not
Right.
imposing policies.
Right,
If
yeah.
something's 4-4, it's probably too close to call anyway, so good for them, it shouldn't pass.
Mhm.
If you're going to come forward with a recommendation, it ought to be overwhelming. I'm okay with being 8. I don't see a big deal.
okay.
If-
So it'd be,
if they were a policy committee and needed to make, that would be one thing, but. I'm
Okay.
with that.
All right, good. Any other discussion on it? Okay, so the motion has been forwarded and seconded to expand the committee to size to 8 voting members, and we would include the 2 members who are now alternates. That part of
Yes.
it, okay. And it's been seconded, so we'll move on to a vote. All those in favor?
Can I vote?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, current business.
Okay, so,
Okay.
okay.
All right, thank
That's
you.
unanimous.
The reason I said that before, Bill, is that you weren't at the meeting, and I was taking that action from the meeting, that's all. It was procedural only.
Okay, so, this may
School
be,
vote's over.
one of the things I wasn't quite sure, but we are moving into a point where we, ordinarily we do a town manager evaluation, and we do it on our air. I know I've seen it in the past. So we were, earlier, we didn't discuss the evaluation because not all the department information was in for department heads who have all also done evaluation of town manager. And so everyone received those in their packet, right? And had a chance to look at those, and hopefully you feel comfortable with that. So I did a summary of the information that I was going to present, and then we can have some discussion. That sounds all right, folks? So, I have a couple of different things.
You're going to
One-
present it now?
Well, it would be, I thought we were going to,
I mean, you're going to give us,
I was going to just give a summary of what was in the evaluations that we turned in, and then I also have the draft of the town manager's accomplishments, which we could mention, and then maybe we could talk briefly about the head of departments.
I don't see any value in going over head of departments. They're nothing.
Okay,
We did not review them prior to evaluate. We evaluate the town manager. They're an internal mechanism.
okay, yeah. So the only thing I guess I would say about these is they were good evaluations.
I would expect them to be excellent
Scale
valuations.
from 1 to 5. He got all 5s. A lot of them were 4.5s. We
And
did
why
get
would you
some all
expect any
4s.
difference? They're his subordinates. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
No, town manager, we
could.
don't need any comments out of you. We've been through this evaluation process. You weren't even born when I was going through the evaluation process.
All right. Well,
Self-serving evaluations from your employees make you feel good. It's like my little puppy, but you can't tell me that they're blind because there's words in those things. You can tell exactly who put them in. So anyway, I find very little value in that type of information.
Right. Well-
I know Stephen wants to rebut me, but there's no need. Your evaluation is done.
Yeah, but at least we've all seen them, and we could discuss openly that we don't have any problems with what they put in there, so.
Okay,
So that's good.
discuss
Thank you for-
discuss as long as you want.
It's done. It's
We got
over.
till 11
It's
o'clock
over.
tonight. Go
We'll
for
move
it.
on. We'll move on. And the next thing is, again, there's 10 areas of the evaluation, and so when I looked at the scores, he had an overall rate on a 5-point scale of 4.01. So there was, in his strongest areas, budget preparation, he received 3 5s in that area. Relations with the media and the community, he received 3 5s in that area. And human resource management was 1 5 and 4 4s. And those were our top, that's where we rated him the top really. And he didn't do poorly in any area. So what I thought I'd do is, any good evaluation gives a person some feedback on areas to improve. And I thought I'd go over theirs and then those and then to look at some of the positive observations. So Again, areas to improve included communication with town, on-town projects has rooms for improvement. Routine communications have not improved, according to some people. The town residents sometime inform a select board member with information that should have been delivered by the town manager about the development of a project. The town manager's approach has decreased our legal costs by giving select board members the town manager's opinion on a legal issue, not the actual legal opinion. It sounds like select board needs to be clear about what we need in terms of legal opinion or your professional opinion. Town meeting warrants, I'll give you a copy of this. Town meeting warrants opened and closed and opened and reclosed was mentioned as a concern. The capital budget process still has shortcomings vis-a the capital planning committee receiving information early enough in the process. Stephen needs to loosen his grip on all organizational elements and delegate without offering proposed solutions for the problem at hand. Supporting your personnel is commendable, but defending bad decisions made by subordinates is not appropriate. This also sends the wrong signal to subordinates on issues of accountability. So some of these are tough to hear. The proposal for an assistant town manager for fiscal year 2018 will be an interesting challenge to Mr. Crane's management style, which appears to be very hands-on with little delegation beyond daily departmental operations. And Stephen still needs improvement on understanding how residents feel about issues. We're almost to the end of this. Mr. Crane was highly supportive, if not instrumental, in moving the DPW project to town meeting vote, but it occurred at the exclusion of other issues, meaning that you couldn't focus on everything. And he needs to be more fully accepting of the notion that there are other worthwhile ideas for solving problems than his own first instinct. Stephen is doing much better, but still needs to work on a better bedside manner when confronted with opinions differing from his own. And then the positive observations, which are much longer. The town manager reports are much more detailed and informative. There are monumental successes this year. The town manager has many important projects that are moving along, and the reports given to the select board were well-researched and detailed. He was also very careful to provide appropriate information in the public record and sensitive information in executive session. The town manager was always available for one-on-one meetings. Was very responsive to the select board's requests. The town manager reports information accurately and promptly in situations where the town is a focus of media attention. Stephen seems to be growing into this position. If I could, I would give more than a 5 rating for the budget preparation. He has trimmed waste in the town budgets while at the same time increased the budget to meet select board policies. Our budget continues to be recognized by the state as an example of best practice. The town manager has a good relationship with the department heads. We are seeing the departments improving in efficiency, and he's put in place important structures like a new employee manual. The town manager considers the employees his family, and he has created a strong bond in all ranks. An employee died this year, and I would have not asked for a more professional response to the situation. This year has also been his initial one working with a new school superintendent. The school budget and the SOI request process went smoothly and exceeded my expectations. Mr. Crane completed negotiations of several collective bargaining agreements during this fiscal year 2017. I don't know what lame, it says.
Those are the union names. Those are the unions.
What?
Those are the unions.
Which, the.
Lame is the DPW.
Lame is the DPW.
Yeah,
That's
Long Meadow
terrible.
Association of Municipal Employees.
Okay, yes, the municipal employees, the police, 2 police, and then the dispatch and clerical. And these agreements met the financial goals of the town. Stephen uses his relationship with the press for the betterment of our community. The town manager takes the goals of the select board and gets them across the finish line. When we had a 2-night town meeting this year, and everything was passed. I believe was a reflection of the community's trust in town government. The town manager brought the new funding program, DIF, to a new development in town that is crucial to our fiscal health. I cannot say enough about the importance of this project. He coordinated and led the effort with several towns and agencies. His ideas on funding OPEB and pension liabilities outside of Proposition 2.5 is brilliant and will be a keystone to our Moody rating. Mr. Crane maintains excellent relations with our state legislators, Mr. Lesser and Mr. Ash. His creative approach and personal dedication to town through several crisis events was amazing. His action in times of crisis have had a positive effect on all departments involved and have reflected the positive values of our town. We are starting to move into the corrected direction we're starting to move in the correct direction for years, and the schools grew the infrastructure of the town. Well, it said, this was more of a comment. It had less to do with you, but it talked about how things are more on track in terms of getting infrastructure in order, especially with the DPW, I would imagine. The Long Meadow has been working to create an understanding of the roles of the town manager and the select board. This new board and the town manager have developed a good working relationship. And so it's nice, we had to take the bitter with the sweet, but there's an awful lot of positive things said. There were a few suggestions that I also should share, and one was maybe the select board needs to be put on the press release list, so we get emails on that. Other than public safety departments, we hear little about professional conferences and training for other department staff. I would also like to see small changes that would decrease our pension or OPEB liabilities. I would like to see safety programs instituted with all of our employees to help with the insurance rates. And I believe our town manager should take a leadership role in the identification and implementation of standards across several areas of our community, covering our historical, cultural, and natural resources. And that is it. So I don't know if, I did try to get comments from every person, and so, Richard?
I don't recall anybody coming out and asking for comments, but maybe I was not paying attention.
Oh,
The only thing I'd like to say for the record is, you all heard Tom identify what he thought were all negative things, and they're not all
he
negative.
said they were hard rings.
They're not all negative things.
Yeah.
You have to, if they're taken out of context, they'd be perceived as negative. Some were meant as a part of a statement being made that said, but I would like to see, and they were not negative comments. I think, Stephen, you've read the evaluation. That's the only exception I'll take, Tom, because you said
yeah.
these are all bad things, and
Well, I
they
said
weren't
areas
all
of
bad.
improvement.
Yeah, they weren't all bad.
Yeah.
They were gentle, sometimes they were very gentle nudge, said,
Yeah.
just think about this, okay? I just want that on the record for folks, because our town manager's doing a fantastic job overall. I think he's doing a great job. We'll have different, wait a minute, Mark, I'll give it to you.
I thought you were done.
And this is the unfortunate process when it gets down to where we have comments and comments and comments, and people can get the wrong impression, but I can guarantee you, we're light years beyond where we were from day one, when this board met our new town manager. There's things been implemented under our cover that we don't know anything about. There's a lot of professional things taking place in our community that is really not brought out in the evaluation because it's not even known. There's a lot of things that take place in this town that are under the radar from the select board, a lot of organizational things. So I take my hat off to Stephen Stewart. I think he's doing a fantastic job as our manager. He is maturing into our job. He's matured into our town. We asked for a town manager that lived here, and guess what? We got one that lives here. Goes to church in our community. I've watched when I've been out that the community comes up and has a relationship with him, all their own. It's not through the select board, it's all their own. So he apparently is very, very well thought of in our community and reaching out in a lot of pockets. So anyway, great job, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. Mark?
Tom, so you read a huge list, but I think that for the appraisal process to work, for the town manager review process to work, it needs to not just be a list, but it needs to be some actions. And so what I'd like to do is challenge Stephen, who's read all these things, to come back to us with a list of, here's what I heard that I'd like to work on and particularly be focused on, and again, it ought not be, put through a diff, but from the comments that you've taken from everything, because then we'll know that you heard the appropriate things and maybe feedback that says, yeah, well, how about the whatever comment that somebody, or something that people said, and there are some recurring themes, and I think that that's what the process is for. I mean, this wasn't, it's not a contract year, it's not whether it's good enough, we're going to rehire you or not rehire you, it's not even whether we're going to give you a raise or not. It really is well, it's not. It's how we're going to grow the relationship and grow the performance, and so I'd like to suggest that, and I don't know if anybody else agrees that.
No, I agree.
We asked Stephen to do that,
Yeah.
and then we
I
can
agree.
follow up.
That's part of a professional relationship that we are at now.
Okay, well, why don't you hold on? I
Aye.
don't know if Bill or Anne Marie have anything to add to.
I think, as Richard pretty much said it all, there's been a huge amount of changes since you've been here. We're at year 4? Yeah, and I think it's growth on our part as well as the town manager's part. But now that we got a little bit out of your way, we're able to see how much you can do. And it was a fabulous year in accomplishments, and it was a difficult year, and we got through it together. And rather than fighting each other, we got through it together, which I think I'm hoping that we'll just continue to grow with that. And it is a process that's still developing. As you feel more comfortable in your role, we have to start feeling more comfortable and understand our role too, which I think is still evolving, because it's not the select board that used to be 10 years ago, or even pre-charter. I think that when we get our charter committee really going, they'll throw more things for us to be working on together. But it was a very, very phenomenal year, and I think for you professionally, and a very important year for the town. So thank you for all your work, and I know that you work after hours, and you spend a lot of time on it, and you sweat, and you really care. And that's what makes a difference between just a good town manager and the best town manager. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I totally agree. I think Stephen's doing a terrific job.
Mhm.
I have all along.
Well, good. Yeah, it was kind of enjoyable to put this list of positive things together. I mean, there are things to improve, well, like all of us, and I know when I've gotten evaluations where people have really focused on my weak areas, I learn a lot, and so hopefully, because I think, and this is just a synopsis, I mean, if you read the evaluations in more detail, you'll catch some other stuff, and again, there is this list of accomplishments that include, dealing with the Glen Meadow water billing issue, a receivership renovation, e-billing option for tax and utility bills, stormwater enterprise fund, the library repairs, Civic Ready started July 1st, the Converse Streets tip, the rec work, Dwight Road diff, Adult Center building committee work, DPW committee work, early voting, Traff Sergeant appointment, one-way road in front of the community house, traffic light design standard, complete streets prioritization plan, ADA compliance, PVTA senior ride program, the cell tower, Blinn tennis courts, age-friendly community, Bay Path University, entrance improvements, completed the CBAs within the budget parameters, middle school SOIs, long-range plan survey results, two-night town meeting, DPW train accident, Colvest project negotiations, Pride project and litigation, bylaw amendments, GFOA award, and the grants award. I mean, and that's just the things that you remembered, the things that we remember. And each one of those took an awful lot of time, and I know that I got a sense everyone appreciates your work ethic. That's for sure. And now, please, if you have.
I thank you, Tom, and I thank all of you for your comments. I am grateful for the feedback, and Mark, to your challenge, I have had these for a while. And there are some very specific ways where I'm trying to get at these areas for improvement. And I do, you know, and the heading of the list that Tom, I didn't call it this, but the heading really should, it's called Draft Town Manager Accomplishments. It starts off with, hey Debbie, go through the select board votes and town manager reports and see if you can cobble together some stuff that we did. Because you know, once we get something done, I move on to the next thing. And I don't really, you know, we don't spend a lot of time congratulating ourselves in town hall. We keep moving forward to keep meeting the needs of the town. That's not to say we don't dispense positive feedback when it's justified, but we really don't dwell on the successes. We really focus more on how do we get better every single day. But this list is really stuff I didn't accomplish by myself, but maybe wouldn't have happened without me. And so I'm proud of the role that I've played in some of these things. You know, some of these things, you know, you look at traffic light design standard. Well, that was something that the town's never really put together. A way to just have, okay, we're gonna have one kind of traffic light, and here's what it's gonna be. Well, that was one, maybe two meetings. It occupies the same number of lines as, you know, the accident. I think we all know that it's not even close to equivalency of time, energy, effort, you know, level of stress that went along with that. And so the list doesn't really, it just is a reminder of, geez, you know, God, it really has been a busy year for us together. Really, these are all accomplishments that we all share in. So there are very specific ways that I am looking at the areas for development. Honestly, I was smiling a little bit because, you know, I'm a little embarrassed because these have been in some of the reviews annually, and I've continued to try and do better about it. The assistant town manager appointment, I have a draft of the job description, and I think I have to review it, and I'll probably nail it down after mid to late August. But I think if you look at it, hopefully you'll see there's a straight line between some of these areas and what I'm hoping the assistant town manager will be able to do, because I've clearly demonstrated that I have a hard time overcoming these areas for improvement on my own, and so I need help in that regard, and I want to do that, because foremost amongst them is, you know, service and communication to the select board, and that's really important to me.
So you're to stop talking to us? You'll have the
That's
assistant town
right.
manager
That's
to do
right.
it for now.
That's right. It's really a gate we're really installing. So, and like I said, I do think it's been an interesting evolution over the past 4 years. I feel really great about the accomplishments we've had. I feel that, you know, some of the tough times made us you know, better at getting to these accomplishments, where had we not gone through some of that, maybe, you know, had we not had a facilitator come in and help us organize ourselves and identify some areas where we need to work better together and stay out of each other's way, maybe we don't get to where we are, you know, with the 2-night town meeting and all the things that we accomplished. I believe that. I believe that probably, if we hadn't gone through all of that, we probably wouldn't be here having a conversation about what a successful year it was for us collectively. From a personal standpoint, I am grateful and proud of the positive feedback. I know Richard says that the department head evaluations aren't as relevant to him, and I can understand that. But they are highly relevant to me, because they do, even though they may know that I can guess who it is, I still feel like they give me pretty candid feedback, and it helps me either build on the things they say I'm doing well, just like I would for the select board, or better manage some of the things I'm not doing as well on, just like the feedback from the board. So all in all, the review process I thought was very good for me. I'm looking ahead to the next set of goals. In fact, I didn't see it in my packet, but Paul Pasterzik and I, as promised at the last meeting, did make some tweaks to the select board goals, and you'll see that they're picking up on areas that we talked about, not only in the review, but in multiple meetings. There are things that I had on the FY17, you know, broadsheet, the 11 by 17 that Marie loved so much. There were things on here that didn't get done. A lot of them did, and I'm happy about that, but there were a few that just didn't, and that's when the comment was made about, you know, the DPW came at the expense of other things. Yeah, I mean, there were some things that just didn't get done, and those are you know. You know, we got a new DPW, we've got stormwater utility that was asked for, we've got a lot of the zoning bylaws and general bylaws regarding property maintenance that we've been looking for. All right, they're done. All right, on to the next thing. So I think in FY18 you'll see a lot of that from me, and I look forward to another good year.
Okay, thank you. I would like to reinforce your thinking, because I know in my own personal life, when I hit a barrier, I usually do need help from somebody else to overcome that, and I usually don't want to ask for help. So having this assistant manager, or, assistant town manager, will build that in, and I wish you well, that challenge. It is a challenge.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is when I review that job description, I will circulate it in draft form to the board. I will probably mark it confidential because it is a personnel type thing, and I'd rather not have it circulated. I mean, once
Right.
I've nailed it down, it gets publicly posted and for 15 days minimally under the charter. But I will, I want your feedback, because it was an idea that was pushed initially by Richard, and we talked a lot about it at the board, and the board supported the inclusion of stipend for the position in the budget. So, I want to make sure that together we think that this is going to help.
Okay, and if folks on the board, when we do look at it, if there are things you feel we want to talk, we could talk about it in executive session. That would be right? We can do that?
I think the easier thing is just to give me your individual feedback.
Yeah, all right.
I'm really interested in your individual feedback versus a directive of the board.
Okay.
So
Alright.
just email me individually, no replies to all.
Beautiful. Okay. So now we can move on to the election workers' appointments. And we have lists here that we both received from the Democratic Town Committee, Candy Glazer, and from the Republican Town Committee, Taz Angelides. So basically, we need to vote the approvals of these lists, right? Is that, so do we have a motion to accept the list that were forwarded?
You haven't done a motion in a long time.
No, I thought I
You're
just
doing
did,
it.
to expand the committee.
Oh.
Okay, so I move to approve the Democratic Town Committee list and the Long Meadow Republican Town Committee list.
Okay.
You want them
second.
separate?
No, but it needs to be as modified, because we got 2 emails today from Debbie that
No, as
it's not the
modified.
list as submitted, that's all.
As modified, because there's.
And
a
then
name-
modified again.
And amended
Okay.
again.
Yeah.
Okay, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so do we need to modify this list now, Deb? Do you have the name that,
There's one addition to the Republican,
So one name,
yeah,
and what's the name?
Mary Kathleen Gray.
wanna,
Okay.
I know who it is.
Gray, G-R-A-Y or E-Y?
A-Y.
Mary
Kathleen.
Kathleen, okay. Oh, it's right there.
Oh, it's
Okay.
on there.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
Mary Kathleen. Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
And Warren Terrace. Okay, so with Mary Kathleen Gray as the amendment, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. And now the block party approval for Farmington Avenue on,
I'll move
Yes.
we approve a closure of Farmington Avenue for a block party on August 27th with a rain date of September 10th.
okay, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, unanimous. And then we go to the high-speed rail resolution, which we received in our packet and we discussed last week. And it basically is it's just supporting the idea that we should have a high-speed rail between Springfield and Boston. Yes?
Tom, last meeting, we said we were going to contact Eric Glesser's office and see, is this the result of that contact? So this is basically what they, okay, that's fine. I just
Okay,
want to,
great, so, okay, thanks. for
Marie, you're
following
shaking your
up
head, you
on
contacted him?
that.
Okay,
All right,
that's fine.
and we have
A lot
our,
of whereases in
What happened?
No, I
Did
wouldn't write the
Senator
whereas. You
Lesser
can-
had made a proposal and it was voted against? Is that what happened?
It didn't get included in the governor's budget, right?
No, it didn't get included in the budget that came out of the legislature. It got knocked out in the conference committee.
But he's got a bill that does the same thing, and it's sitting in the Transportation Committee. So the resolution would be going to the Transportation Committee, and then anyone else we wanted to send it to. Like you said, you wanted it to go
Yeah.
Obviously.
to federal as well as the governor and things like that.
Right, because if there's some federal attention in this area, that would make a difference, and so I'd also like to have it sent to Elizabeth Warren and Senator Markey, and then Congressman Neal, just to inform them that this is how we feel.
Sure.
If we're going to state how we feel, we'll state to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so is there a motion to adopt this that's on the floor? Is that what we're
Not
debating?
yet. I don't think,
I don't think we have a
I
motion yet.
thought you placed a
okay,
motion.
so I moved to adopt the resolution.
Okay, and second? Okay, and now, any other discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just, because people at home have no clue what we're talking about, I just like to, this is a document
read
that
this?
starts out with, it's called the Resolution in Support of Building a Stronger Economy in the Springfield Area Through Rail. And it's dated July 17, 2017, and there's a bunch of whereases that say that a stronger economy can be built by better communications and transportation between eastern and western parts of the state, and it goes on and on. Rail services provides safe, reliable transportation, and the fastest rail link is what exists now, and that there's legislation, and it continues to go down, and then says, now therefore be it resolved that the Long Meadow Select Board goes on record as supporting Massachusetts Senate Bill 1935, and that's the essence of it, and I think people should just understand. And it's called an act to study the feasibility of high-speed rail access between Springfield and Boston, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be transmitted to Governor Charles Baker and Secretary of Transportation Stephanie Pollock. So that's what we're voting on.
Okay, and then if we're ready for a vote, all those in favor? Okay, unanimous. So, that was, we did a great job of moving through this material, and we're on record time. Any subcommittee reports?
I have a
Yes,
subcommittee
right.
report. And then I also have select board comments. So I know that was,
Oh,
so,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
So which will take about an hour and a half.
Just an hour and a half. You
No,
just- yeah,
the-
you just can't let me finish early.
No, the Scantic Valley Regional Health Trust. I was cleaning out my papers, and I realized this would be something everyone would be interested in. It's a plan for managing the health benefits for FY18 and beyond. And these are some projects that have been put in front of the Scantic Valley, and they're going to vote on. And it's a way of decreasing not only our costs for healthcare, but it will reflect the OPEB. One is update the deductible plans to current GIC benchmark plan design level. It doesn't mean that we're going to be doing these things, but these are some of the things they're looking at to decrease the costs. Because GIC's been running into trouble, and they've made some very large changes in their benchmark. And since we adopted that statute, we're able to stay on the GIC benchmark. The second thing they're recommending us to look at, our consultant, is eliminate the standard non-deductible plans by 2018. Long Meadow has a deductible plan. East Long Meadow has a deductible plan. I do not believe the other towns have. So their costs are a little more, are higher. We've discovered they're starting to shift out their higher, and we're all in the same pool with them. So they're encouraging them to go to the non-deductible plans because there's substantial savings there. The thing that I think would affect Long Meadow the most is add health savings accounts, HSAs, which are qualified high-deductible plans with employer contributions to the HSA. The employers may contribute to offer only the standard plans, which may be deductible plans, similar to the GIC, or offer both the deductible and non-deductible. But there's different ways to design these, and the consultant says people definitely save money, and money goes into the employees' pockets, and in the same way, the town starts to save money. And then they're saying employers should review their contribution strategies and consider possible changes. Other towns are not at 50-50. We're at 50-50. We can't do any, in other words, we can't have the employees pay 60% or even the retirees. According to statute, that's the best we can get. Other towns aren't there yet in the Scantic Valley. what I thought was really interesting was considering telehealth programs. Now, Health New England has started that, and that is where they have a doctor or nurse, and you can actually call in, and you can talk to the doctor or nurse on a triage issue before you get up and you actually go to the ER, you go to see your doctor. And they said across the country, they find that this has really cut down on office visits, and people really like it because if you're at home, you have a sick child, are you going to miss the next day at work? Are you going to go in and wait in line and have a really expensive visit when a triage nurse or doctor on a telehealth program could really help you out? And people were hesitant about it, and they haven't decided how far to adopt it. But right now, I believe it's Health New England offers it as part of their regular program, and they've been starting to advertise that among the employees, that you can pick up the phone, do a little bit of a Skype and be able to talk to a doctor. So these are things that are being considered, and I just think Scantic Valley should get the credit that they're really looking at ways to stay ahead of the curve, because they've really kept the costs down, but they realize they have to keep doing it because we have the most expensive health plans in the country, the state of Massachusetts, not Long Meadow. And we have to find ways of keeping those costs down while still providing the best services. So I think they're doing a good job.
Oh, those are all excellent things. The thing with the health savings account, Stephen, is there limits? I mean, because that's a product that a lot of people have, those savings accounts that just end at the end of the year, but these health saving ones continue year after year. But do we have trouble getting that? Is that why we don't have it?
We do have flex plans, which are
Yeah,
the ones
the
that
flex,
use it or
yeah.
lose it.
Use it or lose it, yeah.
Right. I think health savings accounts are offered,
Not yet, we're looking to offer them.
but I
Okay.
want to make sure we're clear. Health savings accounts are not health insurance.
No, they're not health insurance, no.
They're not-
But they
they're not-
just,
they're not
it's
a-
pre-tax
it's not
money
really-
to pay for costs.
Yeah, it's pre-tax
Yeah.
income to pay for additional
Yeah.
costs or out-of-pocket expenses or deductibles.
Yeah.
I think they're, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but I think in some circles, they're euphemistically being put forth as an alternative to having to provide health insurance,
Oh,
and they're not health insurance.
No, that's not what they're talking about here.
Yeah.
They're talking about, it's a way that people can actually save the money, and when they retire, depending on how much they've saved over the years, instead of it going into the doctor's or the employer's pockets, they get to walk away with a chunk of money. But at the same time, it allows them to be a little more thoughtful on their use of the system. So Scantic Valley's still looking at the best plan for the employees as well as the employer.
I know the treasurer of Scannick Valley, our very own Paul Pasterzik, and I have discussed some of the things they're doing that you mentioned. And, like any change, it's, I think the folks at home probably seen enough, hopefully seen enough meetings to know that when you say, oh, we should change this, you very rarely can make a unilateral change because of collective bargaining processes or impact bargaining.
yeah, okay.
And so we want to make sure that the changes we make are thoughtful and save the town money without unreasonably affecting the level of and quality of benefits that our employees enjoy, because we have a good workforce and we want to keep them. We want to be able to hire and recruit good workers as our folks retire. But I think Maria's right on one thing, and that is we need to look at every conceivable idea out there. And I know Scannick Valley does routinely, but for the town side, what can we do as an employer to reduce our exposure and and reduce our costs? And I know we do that, but it's a challenge to go from great idea to implementing a program. And I shouldn't say it's a challenge. It is a challenge. It's not undoable, but there's a long road usually between those two things.
Yeah. But those are, I know as a parent, when you have a child with an ear infection, and when you could call the pediatrician and explain it, and they say, oh, yeah, I'll send a prescription to the pharmacy, that was like wonderful. You didn't have to drag the child in. And so this telehealth thing is really, I can see people, once they start to use it, will like it. The problem as a therapist is that people want to replace their therapist with a computer, and I'm a little nervous about that. I will be honest with you, it scares me, so. But,
The internet never lies, Tom.
never
Sounds good to
mind.
me.
And it keeps all your secrets, we know
That's
that.
right.
So, just ask Elizabeth, or Bill Clinton's wife,
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton,
Yeah.
tells you, keeps no secrets, all the secrets are there. Now, any other subcommittee reports? All right,
I
I
have
believe we...
select board comments.
Oh,
Can I-
select board comments
Can I
that
go to that?
are being held, yes.
Okay, all right, so just some ideas. One is I had talked to everyone about changing the eligibility requirements for the volunteer tax abatement. And so I had Stephen send me what that is. And the thing that concerns me, I think, is the 5 year, that you have to be there 5 years. I wish the board would consider dropping that to maybe 2 years. 5 years seems really hard, because I know a lot of times it's grandparents moving back into town to be near the kids. And then there was something that was said the other day by our CFO, and that was that we have to start changing or looking at some of our financial policies again, because I was looking at it as trying to do financial goals. And he said something the other day about the MGM money. So I came up with a possible way of handling that, which is through a policy change. And that is taking and saying, adding onto our policy, our budget policies, any remaining funds of the MGM mitigation payments after the upgrades to the roads and intersections impacted by the casino will be transferred into the operating stabilization fund. Because I'm really concerned that we've got to find another way to look at it. So consider that. And then the third one will be the biggest controversial one. And that was, as we have been doing for OPEB, we're trying to find ways other than changing ways we work in town in order to decrease our unfunded liabilities rather than just putting money into an account. And this is another way of considering, instead of just saying we have a goal of decreasing benefited positions, have a way or a policy that helps encouraging decreasing the number of benefited positions. So what I did was looking to take our OPEB fund, and if someone wants to hire an additional person, whether it's the town or the school, that is above our current staffing, then we have to start paying for that liability for the future, which is adding $50,000 extra to the OPEB trust fund. Well, on the other hand, if someone starts to decrease the number of benefited positions on their side, then we don't have to put in as much in the OPEB trust fund. So it's just a way of looking at it, not to discuss now, but just sort of stirring the waters up on how we're going to handle some of these things in the future. So that's my select board comments.
Tom, I had one comment I forgot to make.
Okay.
I have heard, and I haven't watched the meetings, but I've heard that the school committee now is meeting on Wednesday, and they're having a daytime meeting.
All right, yeah, I saw that.
How is that going to play into our budget processes and our meetings and all of that? Have you had any communication whatsoever with the chair of the school committee?
No, and Michelle Grodsky is now the chair, right? And I know they're planning to do it during the day, and
It's every other meeting.
Now, those sort of decisions are made by the committee themselves, and so it isn't like we can influence the time or schedules, because I know they even have people who are in different locations who can come in via computer, right, to be
They do have remote,
participate.
they do have remote participation.
It
Remote
was granted
participation.
by this board that they have remote participation.
Oh, that had to be granted, okay.
Oh, yeah, it had to be granted by the select board.
Yeah.
I guess my concern is not so much for their benefits. Well, there's two benefits. Moving from a nighttime meeting to a daytime meeting would seem to isolate a part of your audience, the people that are working. And I don't know how it's going to work out, but I am concerned for the operation of our relationship with the schools is that our meetings are at nighttime.
Right.
And, we expect, or we would encourage to have pretty full participation when we have joint meetings here. And for our meetings, we're not going to have remote participation. It's not authorized for our meetings. But anyway, I just wanted to raise the flag in case you weren't aware, or in case other members of the board weren't aware. Apparently, they're changing a lot of things around, and as a citizen, I'm a little, not even sort of select board member, as a citizen, I'm a little concerned on what's going on, because it seems like they're restricting access to the meetings.
Yeah. Well, it does eliminate people who have full-time employment who can't take time off during the day.
Right.
In terms of participation in the board, and I think that's, and I don't know if we have anything in our bylaws that addresses something like that, because it really does make it a hardship for folks, and you know, it would eliminate, I mean, we have a lot of folks who, families where both people are working full-time jobs, and they still would volunteer for various committees in town, but it would make it pretty exclusive, I think,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if, yeah,
I'm not prepared to speak about the school committee's right to do what they, I mean, clearly they have the right to do what they did, but,
yeah,
you know, I just think from our perspective, and for all the reasons Richard mentioned in terms of openness to the community, but also for several of us who work during the day and our availability, I would encourage you, if, as we go through this year, as we have joint committee meetings with the school committee, I would strongly encourage them to be held in the evening.
Absolutely.
Many of us cannot make those during the day, and I think, for me, that's the biggest issue here is, you know, when you're trying to work with the school committee and they meet Wednesday afternoon, or Wednesday mornings, or whatever it is. I think it's Wednesday mornings at 11 o'clock.
mhm.
Well, the norm is for us to be at nighttime and televised.
Right, and like I said, but you know, specifically, you know, I know I'm working, I suspect Bill is, and Marie, and it makes it very difficult for us to, if not impossible, for us to conduct town business during the daytime, to have a joint meeting with the school committee. And that'd be my comment in terms of how that might impact us, and I, as our chair, I'd encourage you to, if there are to be any joint meetings, that they do be held in the evening.
Yeah, right. Well, I can, yeah, I'll put a call into Michelle Gronsky and just, you know, catch up, just start to open that door of communication on that issue, and if I have anything else to report on the board, I'll do that, or, we will, you know, it's been gonna be a few months, but in September, we usually have a get-together with them, but hopefully we'll, you know, we can hear something sooner.
Okay.
But I'm glad you brought that up,
Okay.
Richard.
So moved.
Okay, would we have a second on adjournment?
We don't have, there is no executive session this evening?
Oh, and then
Oh, that's
we
right.
do have an
Yeah.
executive, so we're adjourning to executive session.
Then I think you have to make a
Yeah.
motion to that
Motion
effect.
to that effect.
What is the reason? I don't have it.
Pending
Is
litigation.
pending
Not pending
litigation
litigation,
for
litigation.
the Pride Station.
Okay, I'd place a motion for the board that we convene and go into executive session, not to return to open session for the purposes of negotiation or litigation.
With Pride
With Pride.
Station, with Pride.
Okay,
Yeah.
litigation with Pride. I thought we'd just leave the name off, but
No,
litigation with
yeah,
Pride.
You have to say the name.
You have to bring it up. Okay, and a second for that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, maybe roll call?
Mark,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Marie. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, to our TV audience, thank you for tuning in, and we will be back in 2 weeks, I guess. Thank you
3
very
weeks.
much. 3?
Three.
3 weeks?
At least.
So it's August 3rd,
Oh, August 3rd will be our next meeting.
or 2nd, or whatever that first Tuesday,
Okay.
first Monday in August.